Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, everybody. Today I'm interviewing Andy Blieden, real estate developer and owner of the Butchertown Market in Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome, Andy. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Before we get into some of the Butchertown projects, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a developer?
Well, I got my real estate license in 1980 when I was 18 years old. My dad and my family was in the real estate business, so he started a real estate company in 1960. So we had always been exposed to real estate, and that's just something I always I eventually came back to. I was president of a manufacturing company for a few years, and I was head of sales for a medical, surgical, disposable goods company, and then finally I came back to real estate, started a company to do stuff on my own. I wanted to do adaptive reuse of real estate. So I probably started that 20 years ago in 1996.
Right. And what would you say separates you from the other developers? What's your magic?
Well, I'm definitely a niche player, and what I try to do is find things that differentiate myself from my competition. So I try to find distressed real estate in really good areas that I'm an expert on. So there are 3 areas in Louisville, Kentucky that I focus on, and that's Butchertown, Crescent Hill, Frankfort Avenue, and the Highlands and Butchertown Road. So, it's very competitive out there, and a lot of people like to, I have a brother who, does deals in 25 states. But I just wanted to localize it about, a 10 square mile radius of Louisville and become an expert at it and start to work there. And I've always tried to buy things as best I can because, as I told, my son said to me when he was 11 years old, we went to one of my properties and that I was turning into a restaurant. He said, "Hey, Dad, how come you only buy pieces of crap?" And I said, "Well, it's hard to die falling from the first floor. So, if we buy stuff right, our downside is not, our downside is very limited."
Mm-hmm. Interesting, very interesting. But again, it's something that's very specialized. And what happened that made you discover really that you were very good at that? That's what you wanted to do. Is there anything specific that really made you think, yeah, this is what I want to do?
I think it's the take that I have on my tenants. I believe that when you're a landlord, you're actually in business with your tenant. So the more successful a tenant is, you're going to get your rent. So what I try to do is I try to find really talented smaller tenants that aren't necessarily the most sophisticated, in other words, they're at the very beginning of the cycle of their business, and then put them in my property and then incubate them and help them grow. And as they grow, I'm able to, charge more rent, but I help them get started. So it's very much a partnership. There's a lot of landlord-tenant relationships that are very adversarial. And it's like, this is what I'm charging you per square foot, and this is what you have to pay me. And if you can't handle it, too bad. And I think what happens when you get into the bigger leases like Costco and Mellow Mushroom and, all these different franchisees and stuff, the soul of the deal is sort of taken away and it becomes very much numbers. And what I try to do is work with these small boutique retailers and manufacturers and professional companies and help them develop. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does, very much so. Actually, myself was involved with this, and as you said, it's not always a win-win, right? So, but in your position, with your style, it seems to be a win-win approach. That's cool.
Exactly. It has to be a win-win, and then everybody will, reap the rewards of a successful, landlord-tenant relationship. So there's a company I've been working with called Bourbon Barrel Foods, and he's the United States' largest microbrewer of soy sauce, and he started in 1,000 square feet, and he now has 15,000 square feet in one location, 6,000 in another, and 1,500 in another, and I own all the real estate. So as he was growing, he said, "Hey, this is what my needs are. I want you to, buy the property and lease it back to me." So, that's been a very successful relationship. And the reason why it's been successful is the guy has, his company has grown by 1,500% in the past 7 years.
Wow, that is impressive. If we look at, very locally, as a specific example, Butchertown Market is one of your original investments in Butchertown that you've been working on, right? 18 years, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Wow. So what brought you to this property in the first place?
Well, at the time I had a small manufacturing company, and we were looking for a place to get up and running, and I found this building in Butchertown that had been on the market for a couple of years, and my dad was a professional in real estate, owned a company, was very successful, and I would run deals by him all the time. And so I called him up and I said, "Hey, I found this building," and he said, "Well, tell me about it." And I said, "Well, it's got he said, "Does it have heating and air?" And I said, he said, "How big is it?" I said, "It's 85,000 square feet." He said, "Does it have heating and air?" I said, "It does not have heating and air." He said, "How's the parking?" I said, "The parking's very tight. It has 8 spots." He said, "How's the windows?" I said, "It has 450 windows and they all need to be replaced." He said, "Okay, what else?" I said, "It's across the street from a pig slaughterhouse." He said, "Okay, well, let me ask you a question. Have you bought it?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I love it." And so that was sort of and I said, "Pop, what would you have said if I hadn't have bought it?" And he said, "Well, that's water under the bridge because you have to make it, we're going to make it work now." But the bottom line was it was this really cool old building that was on the market for 2 years that I ended up buying for next to nothing, and it had great bones. And so the manufacturing company did not last, but I started leasing out space to these different tenants that I had known. And, one of my greatest strengths is that I have relationships with a bunch of different tenants now that, sort of know to come to me if they're looking at stuff. So that's the edge that I have is I actually have tenants coming to me saying, "Do you have any more space?" So I've been able to differentiate myself from the marketplace as being sort of a landlord that'll, really help be an advocate for tenants.
That's awesome.
So now in the Butchertown Market building, we have 20 tenants, and we're 100% leased, and we've been 100% leased. I've had the building for 18 years, and we've been 100% leased for probably 9 years.
That's great. And specifically as a developer, what can you talk to us about the problems you face when you restore that property?
Yeah, I mean, so basically it was just a shell. And, we're in a historic preservation district, so we had to be very cognizant of anything we did. It had to match the historic, it had to pass the architectural review committee, and it had to pass inspections, permits, and licensing, and so there were a lot of hoops to jump through. And plus, when you have an 85,000 square foot building, I had to put an elevator in, which was very challenging, and we had to do, sprinkler and fire suppression and fire safety, alarms and, strobe lights and stuff, which was, very difficult and very costly. And we had to put in basically, update and replace the sprinkler system. So, I work with a bunch of people, electricians and plumbers and carpenters and floor installers and tile installers and just everybody that, helps out on getting the property up to code and ship shape and so that we can lease space out and get certificates of occupancy.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And, I'm glad I did not know when I bought the building, I'm glad I did not know then what I know now, because I might not have done it. And not doing it would have been a huge mistake.
Yeah. Of course, that's often the case in life, right? If we knew it was coming, a lot of things we wouldn't do. So obviously,
right?
Good.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the lesson. The lesson is, so many people get locked into this analysis paralysis, where they overthink things, and life sometimes you just have to jump in with both feet. And I've been accused of being a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. But I think you just have to trust your instincts and go for it. You just got to do it. The thing that differentiates me from other people is I'm willing to fail.
Yeah, that's a great lesson here. So that's there's actually a book called Ready, Fire, Aim, right?
That's a good title.
We talked about this older project, but now one of your new projects is the restoration project at the Butcher Block development just down the street, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So why that piece of property now?
Well, I think so many things are predicated on opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you don't have an opportunity, you don't have a chance to do a deal. And that's it's not like, I go out and I invent stuff and I say, oh, this is what I'm going to do. It's more like, what are the opportunities that come my way and can I take advantage of them? Mm-hmm. And is it the right thing to take advantage of? So I had a guy come to me who had bought 8 pieces of property 2 blocks from me. And, I'd always talk to him about real estate. And he was a residential real estate guy that wanted to get into commercial. But, residential is residential and commercial is very different. And so what happened was he sort of got in over his head a little bit, just because he didn't have the commercial tax and he didn't realize how expensive stuff was. So he came to me and he said, I want to basically sell these. It was a warehouse and 7 Camelback buildings that were between 1,000 and 2,000 square feet. And, basically I bought the whole thing from him and he got out whole. So I had this opportunity and I ended up buying another building next door. And so we amassed this 9-property block of buildings that have a shared courtyard in the back. And, because we have, good contacts, all of the buildings are leased out before we've finished the restoration of the second one.
Nice. And what's your vision of that property now?
Well, the people we've leased it to is a Vietnamese restaurant, a gourmet food retailer, photographer, a modern furniture company that's going to do retail, High Five Donuts, which is a funky donut shop, and a coffee shop that's going to be micro roasting their beans. So, and it's all going to have this shared backyard. and then the Louisville Independent Business Association, that organization is going to move into one of the buildings.
Okay.
So we have this. And we're going to have this beautiful courtyard in the back that is going to be, have a boardwalk and be landscaped, and so it's going to be this kind of funky retail juggernaut of a bunch of cool small companies that are going to each have their own individual buildings, but they're still it's going to be sort of like a strip center.
Okay.
But without being attached.
Okay.
It's like fingers on a hand.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
I like the concept.
Right. So the testament is that we've leased it out, right? So there has to be a need for what we're doing.
Yeah, of course.
People in Butchertown, the thing that makes Butchertown so special is it's authentic and it's Louisville and it's cool and it's hip and it's, you can't fake authenticity. Yeah. So it's where people want to go, and you have to, people are smart. They aren't gonna, they want to have a genuine experience.
Yeah.
And it's
you mentioned. Go ahead.
It's about the experience.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a whole different.
Right. And in retail, I have a retail store, and in retail, the longer they stay, the more they spend. Sort of like a casino.
You mentioned earlier I-5 Donuts. I read that she was quoted saying that you were a relentless man in all the best ways possible. What did she mean by that?
Well, I think it meant that, first off, I love the girls that are doing I-5 Donuts, and this is like their first real business venture, and they have a great product. So I think what she meant by that was I was not going to take no as an answer. She would say, hey, I'm afraid we aren't going to be able to afford it. I said, you're going to be able to afford it, and I'm going to make sure you're going to be able to afford it. So it's like, I just wouldn't let them not sign a lease.
That's great.
Right? So, and it's sort of a thing where I got their backs. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, and one deal doesn't make or break me.
Well, you're definitely not the typical landlord, that's for sure.
Right. Well, you just got to be true to yourself, But still, believe me, I need to make money, and I want to make money, and I stay up at night worrying about money sometimes, But everything always seems to work out. Yeah.
But on that note, there's a lot of people out there that are thinking about restoring commercial properties. If you were to give them any advice, what would you tell them?
Oh my God, don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it. Watch your mind. Don't do it. No, if that's, it's like I tell my kids, you got to follow your passion, right?
Yeah.
You have to follow your passion. You got to figure out what your passion is. I couldn't be, it's like you two cannot do anything but, be musicians, right? That's all that's what they were born to do. I was born to do adaptive reuse of real estate. And that's what I love to do. I love taking a dilapidated old building that was built in the 1870s or 1880s and then bring it back to what it was sort of meant to be. And because those buildings were, they're works of art. They were these guys that built these buildings were artists, So it's sort of a testament to them, and it's a testament to the early times of Louisville, Kentucky, and what was built. And it's important to embrace the past and bring back what we can bring back. So But I'm a capitalist, and if I wasn't making money on these buildings, I would not have the motivation to fix them up. But I would say, if somebody wanted to do that, what are the key things to think about? Well, the key things to think about is, what can you buy it for? Is it in the right location? What's the location going to be like in 5 years? What's the location going to be like 10 years? Because I promise you this, you're going to put way more money in it than you think you're going to.
I think that's the wise thing to tell these people, because we all have plans, and I think that this type of work, it's never going to pan out. There's always some surprises that you can't really expect.
Exactly. And if you aren't going to do it, if you aren't going to commit to doing it exactly how 100% right, then don't do it. Yeah. I mean, I hate people who half-ass stuff. Because it eventually comes back to haunt you. Yeah,
that's very inspiring. I mean, I want to thank you so much for doing this with us today and sharing your story. I mean, how can our listeners learn more about you or get in touch with you?
We have a website called Butchertownmarket.com.
Okay.
And that sort of gives an oversight as to who our real estate company is, and if anybody needs to reach me, they can reach me via that website. It's Andy@thebutchertownmarket.com.
Perfect. That's awesome. Well, once again, thank you very much for taking the time to share your knowledge with our listeners. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure's mine. Thank you so much, and keep up the good work.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.